I don't know why it's so ingrained in our culture, like you have to match and you have to drink wine a certain way and you have to drink with your pinky finger out.
Yeah, put your pinky down.
Yeah, get that pinky down. Salut YouTube!
Salut!
I'm here with Tanisha from Girl Meets Glass.
Say more.
We're here today to talk about French wine culture, and champagne, of course, as well.
Yes, all the good things.
All the good things. Kind of doing a beginner's rundown, I guess, on everything you need to know, but we were saying in a really down-to-earth way, right?
Absolutely.
So it's like, we're not at all here to talk about very technical things, the science behind things.
You must swirl like this.
Exactly.
Sniff. No.
Yeah.
It's how to drink wine for your life. You're eating pizza for dinner tonight. What kind of wine do you want?
So how did you become an expert in wine?
I drink a lot. So
I don't know if you should admit that on camera.
Right. I'm of age, so it's okay. But no, it did start with, I always joke and say that I was in grad school. It drove me to drink.
Okay.
But I was living in Washington, D.C. at the time. Mm-hmm. And there are a lot of wineries in Maryland and Virginia. So I would go to some of those wineries and visit, and then just got really fascinated with the wine culture there. Fast forward, I am now in Paris, France, and I do food and wine tours here. I teach wine classes, a little bit of whiskey.
I'll obviously leave all of her links down below if you want to continue your wine education.
Yes.
So I guess my first question is around when you're at the supermarket, at the bottle store, and you've got a whole selection in front of you, all these different bottles, it can be quite intimidating. What do you kind of look for on a label?
Okay, so a couple of things. One, if you're in a grocery store, that is so much more intimidating because you don't necessarily have the help that you'd have if you were at a wine shop. I say to everyone, have a wine shop that you can go to. Even if you don't go there all the time, have a wine shop so that you can talk to the manager, the associate, because they know their inventory as opposed to the person in the grocery store. But if you are looking at the label, we have one right here.
Handy bottle of that.
Dun, 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 dun. So if you're looking at the label, first things first, what you have, if it says Chateau, we're talking French wine. If it says Chateau, that is the winery where it comes from, or the house that makes it.
Okay.
Next, you'll see the region. This one is Bordeaux, and this is from the Bordeaux region of France. What you need to know about Bordeaux is, if it's red, it's a blend of Cabernet Sauvignon, Merlot, and Cabernet Franc. If it's white, it's a blend of Sauvignon Blanc and Semillon. A typical Bordeaux is, especially this one is kind of ruby red in color. You'll have dark fruit flavors, a little bit of spice, and then a little bit of oak on the finish. Bordeaux is kind of your basic, everyday. It can be easy drinking. Some of the ones with a little more age,
right?
They'll be a little heavier.
Okay.
But this can be your everyday to drink with your steak. You have a roast, your hamburger, ribs.
And what about the year? I mean, it says 2016 here. I mean, what do you look for when you're looking for a year? I guess older is better, but
not
always?
necessarily.
Okay.
No, sometimes there are some wines that definitely get better with age, but then there are some that you want to drink young. Red wines, those can get a little age on them, and so it's nice to have an older vintage, if you will.
Right.
White wines, you typically drink those a little bit younger.
Okay.
But as far as getting too much into age, if you're just a regular, casual, everyday drinker, I wouldn't focus too much on age.
Okay.
Unless you see wine at like a super discount and it's like an older year. Maybe not.
Yeah, okay. Okay. And so we're talking about Bordeaux a little bit, but what about the other regions of wine in France?
So outside of Bordeaux, another famous one, of course, is Champagne.
Yes.
Fun fact, we have a Champagne here as well. Bubbly. So it has a different cork than the other one. Don't try to use a corkscrew with this one. You actually unscrew it with your hand. And the reason I say that, I've had some people do that before. So
And it didn't end well?
it did not end well because the cork is way thicker, so you can't even get down into it. As you see here, it has the specific region in there that it comes from.
Right. Okay.
And there is another thing on the back that says Brut. and that is the amount of sugar.
Oh, okay.
That's in the wine. So not to get too deep into the process, but there are different levels of sugar in champagne. Brut is like 0 to 12 grams per liter, so it's on the drier side.
Okay.
But extra dry is also a sugar designation. So some people think extra dry, no, that's going to be really dry. I don't want that. I want Brut.
Oh, okay.
Brut is drier.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, Brut is drier.
All right.
So there's that. And also notice the difference between the Bordeaux label and the Champagne label. This doesn't have a vintage year on it. The reason Champagne doesn't always have a vintage is because they want the quality to be consistent from year to year. So they keep some of the Champagne from one year and then they blend it into the next year. So the flavor will stay the same. Yeah.
Interesting.
In really, really good years, they'll do a vintage and they'll take all the grapes from that year and then make Champagne from it. But that doesn't happen all the time.
Where do you get rosé? Best region.
Yeah, everyone makes rosé, but the best rosé is from Provence.
Okay.
Provence is known for their rosés. They do make red wine, of course, but people buy rosés from there. Here's the thing. In France, it is actually illegal to do a red and a white blend to make rosé. You make the rosé from solely red grapes, unless it's champagne. Champagne can blend the two together, which would be Pinot Noir or Pinot Meunier and Chardonnay. They can blend those together to make their rosés. But everyone else, it must be a red grape that they just don't ferment with the skins as long, and that's how they make the rosé.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
So think fermentation for rosé, maybe 8 to 24 hours.
Okay.
For a red wine, 2 weeks.
Right. Okay.
So.
Which explains as well often the price point of rosé being more entry level.
Absolutely.
Right. Have you noticed any differences culturally when it comes to France? Their approach to wine versus their approach in the US, for example?
Absolutely. When it comes to wine in France, they're not as worried about it or they don't stress about it. You'll go to a wine shop or down the wine aisle and you'll see them. They'll just walk up, dun, 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 grab it, put it in the cart, and walk away.
Yeah.
Go to a wine aisle in America or with Americans. They walk up and they're like, okay.
Ooh, okay. What?
They pick something up. No. Is it this one? No. You see hands start to sweat.
Like it's a stressful decision.
It is very stressful because they think about what they're going to be eating, what different people like, guests might like, what they might like, the meal, how long the meal will last, how much it costs. And it doesn't have to be that much. You don't have to think that much into it. Get what you like. The people are coming over to drink with you, to have your company. They're not that caught up in, she served that red wine. It didn't go very well with her stew.
Yeah.
Or,
a red with fish?
No one's going to say that, right?
Yeah.
Or if they do, then just don't invite them next time you have something.
Yeah. Long story short. I don't know why it's so ingrained in our culture. Like, you have to match and you have to drink wine a certain way and you have to drink with your pinky finger out.
Yeah, put your pinky down.
Yeah,
Just put
get
it
that pinky down.
I think a lot of that has to do also with wine is ingrained in French culture.
Yeah.
And so they grow up with it. They live around it. Everyone knows a winemaker. Someone in their family was probably in the wine trade doing something. And so it's just a complete part of their life. Just like how in America, ketchup is on the table. Like, that's how it is here, correct? You always get ketchup. It's
wine, ketchup, same, but different.
Also with French people, they know French wine, and by know it, they know what they like or their specific region. And you go into a French wine shop and you see, this is Bordeaux and Bourgogne and Alsace and the Loire Valley. And then wines of the world, one shelf. So you got Spain, Portugal, South Africa, New Zealand, Australia, one shelf.
So like French wines, other. Basically, less good.
Right. Fantastic. Meh.
It's true though that globally French wine is kind of known for being the best.
Yeah.
And is that true in your humble opinion? Tricky question.
Right, this is such a trick question. I kind of have to agree, but that's because I got my start with French wine.
There's something about the heritage, isn't there? Like the heritage and it being passed down through the families over years and years and years.
And it's so much more natural. It isn't as technical or scientific as some of the New World wine regions. A lot of other places, you know, they have to run all these different tests, and then they have labs to do certain things, and, you know, trying to figure out the harvest. In France, to know, oh, should these grapes be harvested? They go out, pick one. 2 more weeks. And then they go back inside and enjoy themselves.
Yeah.
Other places, they'll go pick some grapes. They put on their lab coats and they get some machines out and they write notes.
Yeah.
And then they do some more tests. And then a week later, oh, okay, a week and a half from now. Well, the French people have been sitting inside, enjoying their life, watching
drinking
Netflix
wine.
Right, drinking wine from a previous vintage. Whereas everyone else has been doing all these tests. So I think they are starting to come into their own, the different wine regions in America, and then, you know, also New Zealand and Australia, South Africa, some other places like that. But I mean, France just has a really, really good head start.
Yeah. Champagne, you can only be called champagne if it's from that region, can't it?
Yes. If it's from the Champagne region of France, it is called champagne. If it is a sparkling wine from France, but not from Champagne, it's called Crémant. So you have Crémant d'Alsace, Crémant de Bourgogne, Crémant de Jura, Crémant de Loire.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it literally, if you use the word champagne, even if it's in the States, for example, it has to have come from that region of France.
Now, some people in the States scoot around this rule a little.
Oh, okay.
California says California champagne.
Ooh, California.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for coming.
Thank you for having me. This was fun.
It was a great education and first beginner's guide to some French wine, French wine culture. If you guys have any more questions... Exactly. So go check out the Instagram, Girl Meets Glass. Happy drinking.
Happy drinking.
A bientôt.